Have you ever stopped to wonder why certain people will go to such extreme lengths just to watch someone else fail? Why they'll smile at you to your face, then quietly work behind the scenes to tear apart your reputation, your peace, and your confidence. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Not every conflict happens out in the open. Some of the deepest wounds come from betrayal, manipulation, and calculated cruelty inflicted by people you once trusted completely. They believed they could bury your voice under a pile of lies, isolate you through deception, and convince everyone around you that you were somehow the problem. For a while, it genuinely looked like they were winning. You watched doors quietly close, relationships shift, and people believe stories about you that were never even remotely true. It felt unjust. It felt isolating. It felt like darkness had the upper hand. But here's what they never grasped. Truth has a patience that lies simply cannot match. A lie might travel fast, but truth always arrives eventually, carrying undeniable proof behind it. Nobody's mask stays fastened forever. Every act of manipulation eventually exposes the very person doing the manipulating. The same people who once cheered them on start asking questions. The same voices that once doubted you begin noticing cracks in their story. Without you saying a single word in your own defense, their own actions start revealing everything they worked so hard to conceal. This was never about revenge. It's simply reality financially catching up with people who assumed they'd escape the consequences of their own choices. If you've ever been betrayed, falsely accused, misunderstood, or quietly endured someone else's cruelty while wondering if justice would ever actually arrive, stay with me until the end, because this isn't just another motivational message. It's a reminder that integrity always outlasts deception. Character always outlives manipulation. And no amount of darkness can permanently silence someone whose strength is rooted in truth. Sometimes your greatest victory isn't proving your enemies wrong. It's simply watching the world finally discover exactly who they are, while you keep rising higher than they ever imagined you could. Today, we're exploring that exact moment. When hidden evil gets exposed, fake loyalty finally crumbles, and the people who once tried to destroy you are forced to face the very darkness they created. Stick around, because what comes next might completely reshape how you think about betrayal, justice, and your own unstoppable path forward. Evil can hide, but never permanently. There's a painful truth many people only discover after living through betrayal firsthand. Not every enemy announces themselves clearly. Some wear the face of a friend, a co-worker, a family member, or someone who once cheered loudly for your wins. They laugh right alongside you in public, all while quietly working against you behind closed doors. They study your strengths, memorize your weaknesses, and patiently wait for the perfect moment to use both against you. Their real goal was never simple disagreement. It was always to chip away at your confidence, damage your reputation, and convince everyone else that you are the source of the problem. For a season, it can genuinely feel like they're succeeding. Conversations start feeling colder. Opportunities begin quietly vanishing without any real explanation. People who used to support you suddenly feel distant, and somehow you find yourself defending things you never even did. It's one of the loneliest experiences a person can go through, because you're fighting a battle most people around you can't even see happening. In moments like these, the temptation is to panic, to chase down every rumor, argue against every accusation, and desperately try to prove your innocence to everyone. But here's the remarkable thing about truth. It doesn't need constant defending in order to survive. Truth carries a quiet endurance that deception simply cannot replicate. Lies spread quickly because they feed off emotion, curiosity, and drama. But every lie also carries the seeds of its own collapse. Every false story needs another false story to protect it. Every act of manipulation demands yet another layer of manipulation just to keep the illusion standing. Eventually, the whole structure grows too heavy and collapses under the weight of its own dishonesty. People who operate through deception often convince themselves they're smarter than everyone else around them. They mistake a temporary win for permanent victory. They celebrate seeing you discouraged, assuming your silence means weakness and your restraint means surrender. What they completely fail to understand is that character gets tested most in the silence. While they're pouring their energy into stirring up chaos, you're quietly building resilience. While they're obsessed with controlling how people perceive them, you're developing patience, wisdom, and emotional discipline, qualities that simply cannot be stolen, twisted, or destroyed by anyone else's opinion of you. In fact, hardship often uncovers strength you never even knew you had. Every difficult conversation sharpens your discernment. Every unfair accusation strengthens your self-control. Every lonely season teaches you that your worth was never determined by applause or rejection in the first place. You start to understand that your identity isn't built on what people say about you. It's built on who you choose to become in spite of what they say. And that realization changes absolutely everything. Time has a peculiar way of exposing exactly what people work hardest to hide. Those who choose deception rarely stop at just one target. Manipulation becomes a pattern rather than a one-time decision. The dishonesty aimed at you eventually reaches someone else too. The disrespect that once happened only behind closed doors starts leaking into public view. The arrogance they once hid so carefully slowly becomes impossible to ignore. People who once defended them start noticing the inconsistencies. They hear the contradictory stories. They witness broken promise after broken promise. They start experiencing the same selfishness you silently endured for so long. Suddenly, all the pieces start clicking into place. Without you ever launching some campaign to expose anyone, your own experience starts making sense to people, simply because they're now living through a version of it themselves. This is exactly why patience so often outperforms retaliation. You can't force people to see what they're not yet ready to acknowledge. But life has an extraordinary way of revealing patterns that words alone never could. One of the biggest mistakes people make after being mistreated is believing they personally have to deliver justice themselves, that they're somehow responsible for making everyone instantly understand their pain. But some lessons can only be learned through direct experience. People tend to trust what they witness firsthand far more than what they're simply told secondhand. That's exactly why those who choose deception eventually become victims of their own patterns. They end up creating the very evidence that exposes them. Every dishonest choice adds another crack to the image they've worked so hard to construct. Eventually, keeping up the illusion becomes flat out impossible. The respect they once demanded starts slipping away. The trust they once enjoyed begins to fade. The influence they proudly displayed loses its power, because credibility, once broken, is brutally hard to rebuild. Ironically, the downfall they fear most was never something you caused. It's the direct result of their own repeated choices. Meanwhile, your own path takes a completely different direction. Instead of getting consumed by bitterness, you discover the strength that comes from refusing to let someone else's darkness dictate your future. You realize peace is worth far more than winning an argument. You start pouring your energy into healing instead of revenge, into growth instead of resentment, into purpose instead of pain. Slowly, your confidence returns. Not because everyone suddenly apologizes, but because you stop needing their approval in the first place. The opinions that once controlled your emotions finally lose their grip on you. You become more focused, more grounded, and far more aware of the kind of life you actually want to build. Ironically, the very struggle designed to break you becomes the exact foundation of your greatest transformation. So if you're currently walking through a season where it feels like deception is winning, remember this: appearances are always temporary, but truth endures. You don't need to rush the process or force any particular outcome. Keep your integrity intact. Keep treating people with respect. Let your actions stay consistent, even when others misread your intentions. Character reveals itself gradually over time, never in a single dramatic moment. The very same clock counting down your waiting is also counting down the lifespan of every lie ever spoken against you. Eventually, what's hidden steps into the light, masks fall away, and reality becomes impossible to deny any longer. When that day finally arrives, your greatest victory won't be that someone else got exposed. It'll be knowing that while they were busy tearing down trust, you were quietly building a life, a character, and a future that no amount of deception could ever take from you. Your integrity became their greatest defeat. There's a kind of strength the world rarely applauds in the moment, simply because it doesn't make headlines, spark arguments, or demand attention. It's the quiet strength of choosing integrity when dishonesty would have been easier. Choosing self-control when anger felt completely justified. And choosing dignity even when someone did everything in their power to strip it from you. The people who tried to hurt you never expected that kind of response. They expected outrage. They expected you to lose your temper, chase revenge, and turn into exactly the person they'd already painted you as to everyone else. They wanted your reaction to become the proof behind their accusations. In their minds, all it would take was one emotional outburst, one careless decision, one moment of weakness, and they could point straight at it and say, "See, we were right about them all along." But you gave them something they never prepared for. You refused to let their darkness shape your character. That decision may have seemed small in the moment, but it became the turning point they never saw coming. When someone is determined to manipulate others, they thrive on emotional chaos, because confused people are always easier to control than calm ones. That's exactly why they constantly stir drama, spread rumors, twist conversations, and provoke reactions. Their entire strategy depends on keeping everyone distracted by conflict. But the moment even one person refuses to play along, that whole strategy starts to weaken. Every time you walked away from a pointless argument, you denied them the attention they were craving. Every time you met hostility with calm, you exposed the difference between real confidence and quiet insecurity. Every time you stayed focused on your own goals instead of their insults, you reminded everyone watching that maturity always speaks louder than manipulation. It was never about appearing flawless. It was about refusing to let someone else's bitterness rewrite who you really are. At first, your silence might have been misread. Some people probably assumed your quiet meant you had nothing to say because you had something to hide. Others may have mistaken your patience for weakness. That kind of misunderstanding stings because human nature usually wants to defend itself immediately. But wisdom teaches something different. Not every accusation deserves a response, and not every attack deserves your energy. Some battles aren't won by speaking louder, but by simply living better. Over time, your consistency became impossible to overlook. While your critics kept changing their story, your actions stayed exactly the same. While they searched for new people to blame, you kept building your future one decision at a time. People started noticing the contrast without anyone ever needing to spell it out for them. Real character has a way of revealing itself naturally through repeated action, not through dramatic speeches. The greatest irony is that the people who tried hardest to destroy your reputation often end up trapped by their own behavior. Keeping up a false image takes relentless effort. Every lie demands another lie. Every manipulation requires yet another manipulation. Eventually, even the people who once admired them start noticing the exhaustion, the contradictions, the constant negativity surrounding them. They start quietly wondering why conflict always seems to follow this same person, why friendships keep ending, why every disagreement somehow becomes someone else's fault, why apologies never seem to come. Questions like these slowly chip away at the illusion they worked so hard to build. Meanwhile, your steady commitment to honesty, kindness, and responsibility quietly earns you something far more valuable than temporary popularity. It earns you trust. Trust can't be forced, bought, or manipulated into existence. It's built one honest choice at a time, and once people recognize genuine integrity, it becomes very hard for anyone to talk them out of it. There's one more truth worth remembering here. Integrity was never just about proving other people wrong. It's about protecting your own peace. The moment you let hatred start steering your decisions, you hand control of your future straight over to the very people who hurt you. But when you choose forgiveness, not because they've earned it, but because you deserve freedom, you break the chains they were hoping would keep you trapped. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending the pain never happened. It doesn't mean trusting people who keep violating your boundaries. It simply means refusing to drag bitterness into the next chapter of your life. It means deciding your purpose is bigger than your pain, and that your future won't be defined by someone else's choices. That kind of freedom can never be taken from you, because it comes entirely from within. As time goes on, something remarkable starts to happen. Opportunities that once seemed completely out of reach start showing up. People who genuinely value honesty start noticing your consistency. Your relationships grow healthier because they're finally built on mutual respect instead of manipulation. Your confidence grows stronger, rooted now in real experience instead of anyone's approval. You stop needing everyone to like you because you understand that genuine respect is worth infinitely more than shallow acceptance. And ironically, the very season that once felt like your biggest defeat quietly becomes the foundation for your greatest growth. The wounds that once brought tears turn into reminders of exactly how far you've come. The rejection that once shattered your heart becomes proof that you survived something meant to destroy you entirely. Perhaps the most powerful lesson buried inside all of this is that your integrity becomes a mirror, reflecting back the true character of everyone around you. Honest people are drawn toward it because they recognize something familiar in it. Dishonest people grow uncomfortable around it because it reminds them of exactly what they're avoiding within themselves. You never have to expose anyone. Simply living with honesty, humility, and consistency naturally reveals the gap between authenticity and pretense all on its own. That's exactly why your greatest response was never revenge. It was becoming someone whose life spoke louder than any rumor ever could. So never underestimate the power of staying true to your own values, even when everything around you is pushing you toward compromise. The world tends to celebrate quick victories, but lasting success always belongs to those who protect their character, even when nobody's watching. In the end, the people who tried to provoke your downfall eventually discover that the strongest person in any room isn't the one shouting the loudest or manipulating the smartest. It's the one who refuses to lose themselves while walking straight through betrayal. Your integrity became your shield, your testimony, and ultimately their greatest defeat. While they poured their energy into trying to bring you down, you poured yours into becoming someone they could never be. Someone whose strength is built on truth, whose confidence is rooted in character, and whose future simply cannot be shaken by the opinions of people who chose deception over honor. The crowd finally saw their true colors. One of the hardest truths to accept after being deeply wronged is that people don't always recognize deception the first time they encounter it. Those who manipulate others are often masters at controlling appearances. They know precisely how to look generous in public while being cruel behind closed doors. They know how to wear a convincing mask, speak with total confidence, and construct a version of reality that benefits them alone. They understand the power of a strong first impression, so they pour tremendous effort into protecting an image rather than actually developing real character. That's exactly why, in the beginning, it may have felt like everyone believed them instead of you. Their words sounded polished. Their stories seemed believable. They positioned themselves as the victim, while quietly making you look like the source of every conflict. Watching people swallow those lies whole can be devastating because you know the truth, yet nobody seems willing to look past the performance. In those moments, it's easy to start questioning yourself. You wonder if your silence was actually a mistake. You wonder if speaking up louder would have changed anything at all. But life has a remarkable way of eventually revealing what a carefully crafted performance simply cannot hide forever: consistent behavior. Character can't stay hidden indefinitely, because everyone eventually reveals exactly who they are through repeated actions over time. A mask might survive a single conversation, one gathering, even one difficult season, but it cannot survive years of choices that keep contradicting the very image it's trying to protect. The same manipulation that once targeted you eventually reaches someone else too. The same disrespect you quietly endured starts affecting friends, co-workers, relatives, even the very people who once defended them without a second thought. Slowly, the pattern becomes impossible to miss. One person notices an unexplained lie. Another experiences broken trust firsthand. Someone else witnesses unnecessary cruelty tucked behind a friendly smile. Each incident alone might seem minor, but over time, these separate experiences start connecting like pieces of the same puzzle. People who once brushed off your pain suddenly start recognizing familiar behavior. They realize what happened to you was never some isolated misunderstanding. It was part of an ongoing pattern. This is the moment many people wait years for, convinced it will bring instant satisfaction. Yet when the truth finally starts surfacing, the feeling is often very different from what you expected. Instead of celebrating someone else's downfall, you experience something far deeper. There's relief because you're no longer carrying the weight of being misunderstood. But there's also clarity. You realize truth never actually needed your constant defense. It only needed time. Time has a way of stripping away disguises that arguments never could. While you were investing your energy into healing, growing, and rebuilding your life, they were investing theirs into maintaining an image that demanded endless performance. Eventually, that performance becomes utterly exhausting. Every lie requires another explanation. Every manipulation demands another excuse. Every broken relationship forces another invented story. Living behind a mask is exhausting work because authenticity simply cannot be faked forever. Sooner or later, reality catches up. The people who once admired them start asking uncomfortable questions. Why does conflict seem to follow this person wherever